U.S. Farm Report on the road at the National Farm Machinery Show is brought to you by New Holland, your partner for every season. Visit newholland.com to learn more, and by FBN. Maximize your farm's profit potential. Visit FBN.com.
Welcome back to U.S. Farm Report this weekend from National Farm Machinery Show. Andrew Jackson, Alan Hoskins, as well as Matt Bennet joining us for the panel this weekend. Boy, some volatility again this week. Matt, I know I saw some news that China canceled some beans from Brazil because they were too expensive. You know, some news that China continues to buy from the U.S. But is it South America? Is that the main driver of soybean prices right now?
Yeah, I think the main driver is going to be what's going on down there. Whenever you look, for instance, USDA comes out on the February report with a 134 million metric ton estimate. CONAB comes out the next day with 125. We've seen as low as 122. The difference between USDA and CONAB with 9 million metric tons is essentially the U.S. carryout, whenever you're looking at over 300 million bushels with 9 million metric tons. So there's no question that that final number is going to be quite important, and it's going to be interesting to see because, quite frankly, the USDA is the highest amongst all those agencies whenever you're including the South American ones.
Yeah, and we got that CONAB forecast last week, when we had Dan Bossi on the roundtable, and he had said he had just been to South America, he had seen some issues. But do you think USDA, next week we have our Ag Outlook Forum from USDA. I mean, Andrew, typically it's not a market mover, but considering right now all the focus on what little change or big change are we going to see, do you think we could possibly see some market action out of this outlook next week?
Yeah, typically this is a report that we look at for about 10 minutes and then we move on with our lives. But we're already on pins and needles. This isn't a 2018 or 2017. The market is just kind of sludgy and at a standstill. So volatility, you said it earlier. So it doesn't take much to get traders excited for stops to start getting hit and for us to move hard in one direction or the other.
Alan, there is a lot of noise. There is a lot of excitement, like I said, on pins and needles is how Andrew put it. So now, as you're talking to farmers, you're looking at operating loans right now, that you're having those conversations, really looking at making a game plan when there's a lot of uncertainty in 2022. What's your advice to farmers to kind of block out some of that noise and do what they do best?
Well, exactly right. Block out the noise, sit down and run your cash flows. Understand that we are going to see swings this year in the prices, without a doubt. And make sure these cash flows are going to be dynamic to the point that run them with the higher estimated prices, run them with the lower. Understand what your risk levels are, factor your crop insurance into that.
Well, Matt, last week on the show, we had somebody that said, they think that we could see beans get to $17.95. Talked to a farmer last week. He said, I've booked some new crop beans, some old crop. Just at unbelievable prices I didn't think we could get. So right now, what should a marketing game plan be, considering we are talking about some explosive prices, yet today we're looking at prices that are stronger than what a lot of people had forecast at this point?
What should a marketing game plan be? I think we all need to understand it has to be flexible. You have to have flex this year. There's no doubt that this market has an extremely dynamic capability. Whenever you're looking at the South American issue, you're pulling potentially 35 million metric tons out of the world ledger, which is going to force demand eventually to make an adjustment. But whenever we've got the animals on feed worldwide that we currently have, you could have some extreme swings in the market. So one thing I've said is that it looks like 22 could be a fantastic year. We all know that 21 was a really good year. But 22 will be a fantastic year as long as we don't screw it up.
Well, and the inputs, you just look at it. We had some more news on glyphosate this week, so there is a lot of uncertainty there. But Andrew, as we see prices climb, do you think it's, at what point could we see some demand destruction take place? Or at this point, because balance sheets are so tight, do you think maybe that is not as much of an issue right now?
Well, high prices cure high prices, and we all know that. I think you're already seeing some level of demand destruction. If you let's just use common sense. If you got a chance to buy something today or buy something tomorrow for a price that's $1.30 a bushel cheaper, are you going to wait? Well, that's what the market's telling. That's what the soybean market's saying to do. Wait on the soybeans. We just heard this week about some Chinese cancellations out of Brazil. So the buyers are going to go to either the cheapest market or it may just be waiting till a different window. And the futures market is telling wait until after July to buy. Hold out if you can.
Well, and you know, when we're looking at these forecasts, Alan, there is a lot of uncertainty with planning. You can't pencil in some input prices because you can't even be guaranteed availability. So what's your advice for farmers right now when you're saying, listen, you've got to know production costs, you've got to know all of this, but sometimes that's not easy right now?
That's absolutely right. It isn't easy. And what I would say is use the best numbers you can, but then shock it. Shock it 5%, 10%, because we don't know what that number may end up doing. And what Matt said's right. We've got to be flexible this year and got to be prepared for those changes.
All right, well, the acreage debate is heating up. So we need to talk corn prices, we need to talk wheat prices, but also feed users. We'll look at the livestock side. We need to take a break, and then we'll have much more right here on U.S. Farm Report.